Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Two Birds and a Third short discussion. I hope everyone enjoyed the draft. I hope everyone enjoyed or has been enjoying the Two Birds and a Third content. I wanted to discuss something right now in this short discussion that I don't 100% believe in, but logically seems sound, right? Now, what is the goal of every sport in professional sports? It is to win the championship. It is to be the winner. And when it comes to college, it is to get as far as you can in March Madness and the College World Series, or in the to get the best bowl game in the BCS, if you know what I mean. To go as far as you can to get the highest ranking. But here's the thing. In all of those sports, besides football, there has been one type of championship. There's only been one. And here's where I kind of disagree with myself sometimes. I kind of pull back and forth, right? The goal of football is to win the Super Bowl, right? To win the Super Bowl and nothing else matters. Now, I've been told my whole life that your NFL championships, the ones you won in the 40s and one in the 60s, they don't count. They don't matter. They are meaningless. Right? And I go back and forth on that. And the people who are usually saying stuff like that are usually people whose teams weren't around during that point in time, or had never won a championship at that point in time. Those who don't know anything about NFL championships, back in before the merger, before 4 years before the merger, there was a game called the NFL Championship in the NFL between the two highest ranked teams in the NFL. There was no playoff system. There was a polling system that told you who the two best teams were. Both of those teams would play each other, and the winner of that game was the NFL champion. And they got a nice ring with a diamond in the middle. Now, that was really based off of the college system, which the college system also used a ranking system to tell who was going to be the champion, except until the late 90s, there wasn't a game. It was the best ranked team, and they were the NFL champion. If the best ranked team during a certain span of time. And nowadays, there are multiple college football champions just because of based off of the polling system, based off of who polled who, and whatever algorithm someone came up with on their abacus in their mother's attic. Multiple teams in 1 year winning championships. But here's the thing, right? People will say, "Oh, your NFL championship, it doesn't matter because there were less teams back then, because there was no playoff system and stuff like that." But you look back at all these other sports. You look back at hockey specifically. When hockey started, there were only 6 teams, right? And when basketball started, there was no 3-point line, there were no 3-point shot. In baseball, there were different teams entirely, and even less teams entirely as well. So when you look at, your championship doesn't matter because of all of these other implications, you look back and you're like, well, the NFL has changed. The NFL has changed since not only the merger, but since they started playing Super Bowls between NFL and AFL teams, because 4 years before the merger, they were playing the Packers and the Chiefs. It's the best team in the NFL versus the best team of the AFL, and there was no playoff system to get them there. There's basically just a one-game playoff system. The Packers beat the Cowboys in the Ice Bowl, and the Chiefs beat whatever team they beat to get to that Super Bowl game. and there again, no playoff system then. There, the NFL and the AFL were two different leagues. So why should those games count if both leagues weren't even merged together? Why should these games count just as much as those games if there were 6 less football teams back then, or maybe even 7 or 8? I'm not exactly sure. I don't have the numbers right in front of me. Why should these games be the same as those games if, those games didn't have instant replay? If they have instant replay, that immaculate reception by Franco Harris, that probably gets overturned. And the Steelers never play, I believe, the Vikings in the Super Bowl. There was no salary cap back then. There were so many things that were different. There was a 12-round NFL draft back then. There were 6 preseason games back then. And it really turns me over to the college system. And the fact that the college system has gone from having no championship game to a championship game between seeds 1 and 2 to now having a 4-team playoff. But the thing is, in college, you have the fans recognize all of their championships throughout the years, but for some reason, the Eagles' 3 NFL championships don't matter. And I understand that the goal is to win the Super Bowl. To win the Super Bowl at all costs. I want a Super Bowl. If the Eagles ever do win a Super Bowl, I will prize that Super Bowl over an NFL championship any day. But not only does the NFL recognize that as, the most an equal championship, but if you listen to a Packers fan or a Bears fan or a Giants fan, teams who have won multiple Super Bowls and multiple NFL championships, heck, possibly even the Washington Redskins as well. I think they have 4 or 5. You listen to those people and they're like, yeah, it's the same, but, the Eagles are ringless, and it's just a stigma that I think forever Eagles fans will carry. And I partially do agree with the stigma, but at the end of the day, why don't they matter if the championships from these other sports, just because we call it something different, just because it's a different thing, right? Just because in 1966 or 1967, when the Chiefs played against the Packers, they were just experimenting with this new game, right? It's the same league, the same Hall of Famers, the same Hall of Fame coaches, the same commissioner was the commissioner in 1965 for the NFL all the way to the early 90s. It just doesn't make much sense to me why there's a big difference, but we are always taught from a very young age that there is a very big difference. So this is Hank with a 2 birds and a third short discussion. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I hope everyone learned something new. Again, this is not 100% what I believe, but due to consistency, you have to buy that there is a huge contradiction and a huge double standard. That's all I have. Be back in the week with more content.